Well, good afternoon, folks. This is Jim Hodgson. I'm out here in Justin at Cowtown Warbird Aerocrafters, and we are going to talk about our O-1 bird dog today. This is Lanny, if you haven't been on the previous meetings with him, and Lanny's got a bunch of parts here and he wants to talk about it. So go ahead, Lanny. You got it.
Okay. So what we're looking at here is most of the empennage and the control surfaces for the wings, that they've all had the yellow paint and the epoxy primer stripped off of them and inspected, and now we're in the stages of final cleaning to re-prime all of these parts and getting it ready to paint in its Air Force paint scheme of the kind of light neutral gray.
These things really look beautiful.
They cleaned up really nice. We got a little hanger rash, some little wrinkles here and there to blacksmith out a little bit, but for the most part, they're in really fine shape.
Could you tell if there'd been a lot of painting done on the airplane prior?
You really couldn't tell.
Okay.
I think when the Forestry Service had it, they stripped it.
Oh, okay.
So the only thing that was on it was primer and yellow.
Okay.
So
well,
all the old military paint was gone off of it.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Well, that was one thing. I'm glad you brought this up because I want everybody to know. We're going to do a two-side paint job on this airplane. It's going to be the basic gray, but one side is going to have markings on it for the red markers, who were the original forward air controllers. And we've got that stuff that we'll share with you, so you don't have to make that up.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, which is even more plain, is we're going to mark the airplane in the colors of Wilbanks the day that he earned the Medal of Honor and lost his life. So we're going to have kind of a Harlequin basic paint job, just some of the markings.
The same factory paint scheme gray,
Yes.
with U.S. Air Force down the side. It's just squadron markings and trim colors that are different.
Yeah, so it's not going to be anything that difficult. So, oops, I'm losing control of my zooming and stuff here. So,
Okay.
what else would you like to tell us about this stuff?
Well, one of the interesting things that we've kind of changed our process a little bit. So I'm going to be priming all of these parts with an epoxy primer that they make in white now.
Oh, okay.
Which is a big advantage for this paint scheme because it's in light gray. The old epoxy primer was kind of a dark zinc chromate green,
right?
And then so now you got a dark base color. You're trying to turn it light colored with the gray. So this airplane's all going to be primed in white.
Okay, so that means
so
like one coat.
The gray should cover it real easy, and it actually kind of helps the color pop.
Okay. Since it's white and it's an epoxy in particular, does that
pressure washing after we've stripped it?
Yeah.
You can see you've got like an overlapping seam. You can see paint stripper and residue come out from underneath this piece of sheet metal when you hit it with a pressure washer.
Okay.
So that epoxy paint will seal all that up, and you won't have that water leaching between joints.
Okay. What would you say? How long will the paint job last?
Oh, the paint that we're using on it, which is it's actually mil-spec paint.
Okay.
The paint that I got, with the color chip to the right number and the whole 9 yards. That paint job, not sitting out in the weather 24/7. It'll probably last 30 years.
Oh, that's
easy.
great.
Yeah.
That's something that we've had issues with. Of course, our planes are static for the most part, so we have painted them not necessarily using aircraft grade paint, but we haven't gotten, other than the epoxy that we did on our F4, none of the other paint jobs have really held up very well. So we're hoping to be able to change that.
Yeah.
Got a bunch of
it just takes dollars squared to be.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Right. So we got a bunch of people watching today. If you've got any questions, I can read the screen really well since I'm inside. So if you got questions for Lanny or myself, go ahead and just throw them out. So
okay. So we've got, like I said, this is kind of this is the prep area of the shop where we're getting these parts ready to prime. So we got the rudder and the vertical fin and the cowling. We acquired a new cowling, which is
really?
Yeah. I found a place in Colorado that has a bunch of new old stock parts. So this cowling has never been on an airplane.
Wow.
It's brand new.
Let me get back so I can get a whole picture of that.
Yeah.
That looks great.
That's right out of the wrapper. It still had Cessna paper wrapped around it.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, that was a big score. I don't know if you remember the other one, but the baffles on the engine that I'll point out later when we're up at the front. The baffles have a seal that goes around here that
Right.
keeps the engine kind of pressurized, and the seals wore out on the
Okay.
original baffling, and it was metal to metal in several places. And if you held it up to the light, you could see holes
really see-
through
oh,
that
geez,
cowling
okay.
where
Okay.
it was eating itself up.
That's terrific.
So that was a good score finding that part.
Now, that, with stuff like this, are parts easy to find?
Not necessarily. Some parts are and some
Okay,
aren't. I mean,
okay.
there's definitely unobtainium in all these vintage
Well,
airplanes.
Sure.
Where
But how about this new old stock? I wouldn't have thought there'd be any new old stock left.
there's quite a bit of new old stock parts,
Really?
especially for the bird dogs, because they were in service for so long, and
Okay.
everybody used them. I'm not sure how many Cessna built, but there was several thousand.
Yeah.
And they built a lot of spares and a lot of support for the military use, even after the U.S. military quit using them. The Spanish and the overseas
Right. Well, and
overseas
this
Air
one came
Force.
from the Forest Service.
Yeah, so there was a lot of government use for them, so they made a lot of spare parts.
I'm seeing some new. It looks like new tin here. Did we do repair work on some of this stuff?
That was actually a Forestry Service repair that
Okay.
needs a little bit more tweaking.
Yeah, I can see that.
That kind of came to light after you got the paint off of it. It's been dinged again, and almost every L-19 rudder you see has a repair on the bottom where the tail wheel broke at some point, and the tail comes up and
Okay.
the tail wheel comes up and hits the bottom of the rudder.
I'm amazed at how good this looks. I mean, it's almost a shame to paint it.
Yeah.
Except you have an airplane called Madness, and you know all about polishing.
I know all about
airplanes, right?
polishing. Yeah. So we come up to the fuselage. There's two significant changes since the last time you've seen it.
Okay.
The first thing we did is we jacked it up like we talked about before and inspected the repair on the gear.
Yeah, because we had talked about the gear had probably been damaged.
Right.
Yeah.
Almost all of them have a repair
Okay.
on the gear, and it passed with flying colors. I'm happy to say.
Oh, did it really? Good.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the gear's in good shape. It tracks straight. I mean, the gear's been out. There's been structural repairs in the gear area.
Okay.
They put the gear back in, and some of the rivet work and some of the fasteners that they used made us suspect that we had movement in that gearbox.
Oh, right. I remember you talked about that before.
Yeah, so that was a concern. So
Yeah.
we got it. We hung it from the ceiling basically.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, and shored it up, and then stress test that gear. Pulled on it, moved on it, tried to get some movement out of it. Inspecting the fasteners to make sure they weren't
Yeah. Did
moving
you drop
around.
test it at all?
No, we didn't really drop it.
Okay.
Didn't have a good way to do that. but
Okay.
we couldn't catch it when it bounced. So
All
we
right,
didn't want
got
to
it.
try that.
Yeah.
So once we got confirmation that the gearbox was in good shape and we didn't have to do anything structurally there, then we shored it all up like you see it sitting here
Right.
and drilled off this damaged skin.
Okay. And where do you think the damage came from on that?
Well, that's where when it moved around in the glowworm.
Oh, that's right. That damage.
Yeah,
Okay.
that
From the
damage.
storm, the
It
storm
ended up
damage.
on the tail. Ended up
Right.
on top of a picnic table or
Right,
something like
right,
that.
yeah.
So, this center bulkhead was bent and caved in, but fortunate for us, it didn't have any cracks. It just
Okay, just
it
a little deformed a little.
deformed, and we cold worked it back into shape. So we don't have to change this bulkhead. We'll probably put a stiffener on it where it was stretched before,
Okay.
so that it'll stay in position. The bottom, the skin that's not here was unsalvageable. Once we got it off, it's pretty bent up. And when you bend aluminum, you basically stretch it.
Yeah.
So when it caves
Yeah.
in, you stretch it and you go to hammer it back out, and all it wants to do is oil can the other direction.
Yeah,
There's too much
okay.
material in that area now. So
Okay.
we've got a flat pattern already cut out for it. And so the next step on that, it's real interesting the way it was because there's no stringer here. Along this, you can see
okay.
this rivet line right
Yeah.
here. There's no structure behind it.
What was
This skin comes up and then breaks 90 degrees and then breaks again and forms a stringer. So it's got a return flange.
Okay.
So it's one piece of skin, but it breaks on both sides. And they use that as the stiffener for down the side.
Now, is that how you're going to replace it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be it's being repaired in accordance with the structural manual. When you took this skin off, it's still shaped like a big taco shell.
Okay.
And so we had to lay it out flat. We had to flatten it out
Okay.
and then scribed around it.
Okay.
and then we cut a new one out of a flat piece of sheet metal.
Okay.
And so the next step, maybe even this afternoon, we're going to take it to a machine shop over at Meacham that has an 8-foot brake, so we can put those bends in it and build those stiffeners.
Okay.
And then we'll have to contour it so that it's back to that taco shape to fit up in there.
So, but you literally took it out, flattened it out, and got your new shape from that.
Correct.
Oh,
yeah, we reverse engineered it basically, flattened it out and scribed around it.
Now, did you start with paper first or anything?
No, just went straight to metal.
Very cool. Yeah, because I don't imagine many of the people who are watching have ever seen any of this process.
Yeah.
That's involved in this. So.
And it's a little. It's to our advantage that it's basically a lightweight airplane.
Yeah.
Because if you were working on an A4, that skin would be in some places probably a quarter of an inch thick.
Oh, right.
And we don't have the equipment to bend that kind of metal. You have to have some serious tooling to be able to bend thick metal. This is 025.
Yeah. How many bird dogs have you worked on before?
Just 2 others besides this one.
Okay.
My dad had one for a long time.
That's right. Yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So where else, or where do we go from here now with this?
Well, once we get this skin formed, which I'm hoping within the next week, we're going to have it clecoed back in and ready for the skinny guys to. Cause we got to shoot those rivets from inside, so somebody's going to have to crawl inside the fuselage with the bucking bar, and shoot those rivets from the inside.
Do you have a candidate for that yet?
Well, it's probably going to be me. Oh. It's probably going to be me, but.
But you don't have a problem with claustrophobia?
No, I don't. It won't be that big a deal.
But that's so. How many rivets do you think this is, or have you already counted them?
I haven't counted them, but.
So how long do you think it'll take to replace that skin?
Once it's in place and we've drilled all, because let me back up and I'll go through the process. So once we get it formed and we fit it up in there and we know it'll fit,
right?
We get it lined up. We'll probably take it out again and put a couple of index holes we're going to transfer over from the old skin.
Okay.
It's very difficult, especially on a curved part, to actually transfer every hole from the old damaged skin.
Oh, okay.
Because they may not line up when you put it back together, especially being that we've had to do some work on this bulkhead. So we're not going to pick up any of the old holes in the old skin and hope that they're going to match the bulkhead. It may have moved a little.
Okay.
So it's called, the process is going to be called back drilling. So we'll get it fit up. We'll get it where it nestles in real nice. We'll put ratchet straps around it to snug it up against the structure.
Okay.
And then I'll crawl inside with a drill and drill through the old hole.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So you're doing it in reverse. So we're gonna pattern. We're gonna use this as the pattern and back drill through it from the inside to copy that pattern, and then put clecos in it as we go to keep it snugged up. Then it'll come back out again.
Okay.
And get on all the holes, get deburred, and get all the chips out from between the materials.
Right.
Then we'll put it back in and cleco it all up, and then it'll be ready to start riveting in.
There's a lot of work involved in this stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a little bit, but it's kind of fun. I enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, you'd have to. It's kind of creating or what, putting something back right again. In some of that.
And you're not doing it like the factory did it. So you can see the way the factory did this. The top skin was riveted on, and the bottom skin was riveted on, and then this big square panel right here was the last one that went on.
Yeah,
so they could sit here and just rivet it together from outside and not have to climb inside of it.
Got it. Okay.
And so then they probably put one side on and shot it from the other side.
Okay.
And so they only had one skin to put on with somebody inside.
Okay.
And when the factory did it, they did it from here to here. They made one that was one piece.
Right.
And then so they riveted this all together, and then they mated the two pieces together. So there wasn't a whole lot of little guys having to climb inside of things.
Or children.
Yeah.
Anybody got any questions of Lanny so far? If you do, just go ahead and type them in there, and we'll ask him, see what he has to say about it.
Yeah.
So you were talking about antennas earlier.
Right.
So we're looking at what we're going to do with the antennas on it, because these things had a lot of radios.
Yeah.
So most of the radios are going to be non-functional.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just put,
we'll have all the cosmetic antennas on the outside, but there's, even if you had the radios and they functioned, with the frequencies that they used back then, there won't be anybody to talk to because everybody uses different frequencies.
That's right.
So,
Time warp back to
yeah.
to Vietnam, right?
So we'll put the ADF antenna. That's that black radome that's sitting on top of the fuselage.
Okay. Show people that.
That was a automatic direction finding antenna. It was a loop antenna underneath of there that turned.
Okay, Mike James is asking, zinc chromate primer. Mike, we were talking about it a little bit earlier, but Lanny will be glad to tell you again what kind of primer we're going to use.
Well, we're actually using an epoxy primer, a two-part epoxy primer. The zinc chromate was what everybody used back in the day, but it's really it's a porous primer. It's made to have something on top of it or not be in the elements.
Okay.
So the rest of it has zinc chromate.
Right, and they can see some of that on here, right?
Yeah, that's that green color.
This is a green color for some of you if you're not familiar with that. But as Lanny said earlier, they're going to use a white epoxy, which will actually seal the airplane up and hopefully protect it even better.
Yeah, and it makes a good base coat for a light color. That's also a big advantage.
Have done anything with the cockpit lately?
The only thing we did was loosen up the instrument panel so we could get to the 10,000 screws that held the windshield in.
Oh my
the
God.
last time you were here, the old windshield was still in there.
Right, it was, yeah.
Yeah, so we've got the old windshield out.
Let's see if I can get up here on the steps and show them a little bit. Oh, yes. Oops. Come back. Yeah, you can see all of those screws. Wow.
Yeah, there's a screw every 1.25 inches all the way around that windshield.
Now, was this some kind of a sealant, this
Yeah,
black stuff?
it was almost like tar.
Was it really?
I'm sure it's
over the years.
Yeah, I'm sure it's probably the original stuff. It probably the stuff I've used in the past. It's very similar consistency to Play-Doh.
Oh, what?
And
okay.
you formed it in place, and then you put the windshield in and crushed the windshield into that Play-Doh.
Yeah.
And then over the years, it sets. As it gets older,
Okay.
it gets gooier.
Okay.
So it in addition to the little metal strip with all the screws in it, it also has a lot of adhesion with that that sealant that's in there.
Okay, and Mike is asking, and I think we've answered this, but will the antennas be functional? Some of them.
Some of them will be functional.
But some of them are going to be cosmetic because we don't really need all the same radios. We just need some basic comm.
Right.
For the airplane.
The comm antennas will work. Communication antennas will work. These days, the navigation that they used where they were homing off of FM.
Yeah.
Nobody homes on FM anymore because now you have GPS. And,
right.
And so it'll have a GPS antenna on it that's very subtle. They won't really notice it, but we want to put all the GI antennas on it that you would notice from like in a photograph.
Sure.
So if you took a picture of the airplane, it's like it's got all the right antennas in all the right places.
Yeah, otherwise we know that we're going to have vets come in and they're going to go, that antenna's missing, or it was this thing.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. So, any thoughts on the engine so far?
Well, we've cleaned it up. It had a little bird nest and some bug nests here and there.
Well, it looks a lot cleaner. Yeah.
It's been cleaned up, gone through. We did some inspection on the hoses, and we've determined that basically every flex hose on it is going to have to be replaced because they're probably the original, the ones that Cessna put on, because they are. Okay. There's no
really?
flex left. They're petrified.
Okay.
On you.
Okay.
So these hoses like this that are supposed to be flexible.
Yeah.
They're not very flexible,
not very flexible.
and you can see corrosion in the base of these fittings.
Oh yeah, sure can.
Yeah, I'm chipping out the corrosion, so those fittings are probably shot, and I know the hoses are shot. And that's all high pressure fuel. It's a 15-pound fuel pressure fed system. So,
well, and if anybody you plan to fly this airplane, this is the only airplane in the collection that we have at this point in time that potentially is a flyer. And so we're really looking forward to being able to use this as part of the outreach programs to get to air shows and fly-ins and things like that, and be able to promote the museum and aviation history.
Yep,
so,
there you go.
Anything else you'd like to share with everybody today?
Well, I'd like to point out that big crate that showed up 2 days ago.
Okay, let me show them a crate. Okay, there's the crate.
There's the crate. It looks like a factory crate to me, but that's the new windshield.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we've got all the glasses in hand now.
Okay.
And so as soon as we finish stripping all the old goop and the paint off of the trim pieces that hold it in, we're going to start fitting up the glass.
Okay.
We'll fit it all up in and make sure it all fits and it doesn't need to be trimmed.
Okay.
And then before we start doing any painting, because we're liable to booger up the primer or the finish, so we'll get everything dry fit, so to speak.
Okay.
And then we'll pull it all out, prime it, and then put it. I think my plan is we're going to put all the glass in final.
Okay.
And then tape it all off before we paint it gray. So the screw heads will all be painted gray, and no sense in painting it in detail and have to come back and paint it again.
So now you said new windshield. Is this new old stock or just new?
No, it's new manufactured. Okay. There's a place in Pennsylvania, LP Aeroplastics, that was the supplier for Cessna, and they still have the tooling.
Okay.
For that windshield, so it's built off the original tooling, molded. It's a one-piece molded windshield. In fact,
that's pretty impressive.
Here's the one.
There's the old one.
Here's the one that came out. So you can see it's got some pretty molding in it. It would be quite a feat to try to reproduce that without the original tooling. And you can see this one's probably the original because it still has felt combing around the edges of it. Or modern standards that would be a little neoprene rubber seal on there, but the Cessna used felt.
But unless you had a bird strike, there wouldn't be any particular reason for changing out a windscreen.
No,
bird strike, hail, something like that.
Yeah, other than the fact that they just get cloudy.
Yeah,
it's a polycarbonate. It's plastic.
Okay.
Right. It's not glass.
Right. Right.
Not like your car windshield.
No.
It's plastic. So.
And it's old plastic at that.
Right. So as it deteriorates, it gets cloudy and turns kind of yellow. And to me, there's nothing prettier than a brand new restored airplane with crystal clear glass in it that you can't even tell when you're sitting in the cockpit looking out. You can't even tell there's anything in front of you.
Well, I've got Diane England has said thanks for sharing, and Mike James is thank you for the update, Jim and Lanny. So we're pretty much up against our time. So unless we've got any last-minute questions from here at Prop Wash and Cowtown Aerocrafters with Lanny Parcel, thanks for joining us today, and we'll be back when they're probably about the time you're getting ready to paint, I guess.
Yeah, probably so.
Okay, well, folks, thanks. Have a good weekend. We are going to be open on spring break Wednesday, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, by the way, from 9 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. So come on out and visit with us. We are still requiring masks at the museum for now. And so just keep up with us on Facebook and on the website. And for now, I'd like to thank Lanny. And that's it from Justin.
Bye, guys.